Okay, so what happened with Candy was this. So Candy, we're up in Calgary, and I'm fucked up. Like I got, I like when we get to there, when we get to Calgary, we get pulled over by customs, and my partner is like, "Oh fuck, man, Tommy, I got like a lot of heroin on me, taking over the border." He's like, "You fucking got us arrested."
Our guest got his start in acting before venturing into writing, directing. He was Bodie in Real Genius, Ginger Moss and Howard the Duck. A troop leader in Spaceballs, Private Martin Bienstock in Hamburger Hill, and Jack Santos in Child's Play, as well as other productions throughout the 80s.
Wow.
Right.
Thank you. Wasn't that awesome, man? Yes, I knew it.
We're not done yet. Writing credits include Snow Dogs and 2017's The Grinch, and he wrote at least a handful of films you grew up on. Cool Runnings, Little Giants, Bushwhacked, Shrek. And he did all this while hopped up on the smack. He actually wrote, produced, directed, and starred in a feature film that's based on his heroine misadventures called A Thousand Junkies, released in 2017. Mr. Tommy Swerdlow, thank you very much for being with us today.
Right. Yeah. I hopped up is a strange way to put it, but I definitely was I definitely was compromised.
My lingo is solely restricted to 90s after school specials, so forgive me.
Well, as you know, I started in one of those, so.
That's yes.
Now, we'll begin with the stroll through some of the highlights of your career that are particularly interesting to us. Let's start with your acting career, because that seems to be where your career in show business began. What led you to acting, and what was writing something you always wanted to? What was something was writing something that you always wanted to eventually pursue? Is that something? That was horrible. We're going to come back to the last part of that last question. What led you to acting, and what was? I knew that was wrong.
I sent him this a week ago.
He did not. That's a fragment. What led to acting, and was writing something that you always wanted to eventually pursue?
Was writing. So yes. Writing. Yeah, I was a poet, and like I would be asked to sort of like, if something like happened at school, like there was a rally about, we didn't want there to be a nuclear plant in New York near the, or something. Or I went to a left-wing radical school, a progressive high school that's famous for the guy who got killed in Mississippi burning went there. So it's got a legacy of like activism and stuff. So things like that, I would read, I would write a poem, or I always had a facility from sort of, my big influences as a writer were Dr. Seuss and Bob Dylan. So I had a kind of gift for that. So I always knew how to write, and I was able to express myself. But acting, I did it a few times, seemed to have some talent for it. And it seemed like writing was hard, and I'm dyslexic, and I have a lot of learning disabilities. I didn't really go to high school because I went to that school. They sort of let me not really do anything I didn't want to do. Like I didn't go to math or science. I just kind of went to, social studies and English, so I could do it. And I didn't want to go to college because I'd already moved out when I was like 16 out of my house and lived with this girlfriend of mine. So I didn't really like school. I didn't know what else to do. I was like, acting seems like something I could do. It just was like, made sense. And I got into it, you know what I mean? And then it's funny, I was just writing about this period. I'm writing trying to start a new book maybe. And I just thought to myself, what the hell can I actually do? That's like, I don't want to work, I don't want, writing is, I gotta say, it's like, having done both, it's just a much lonelier, harder, difficult, weirder discipline, like acting's a really tough job because it's hard to get parts. But once you get them, and it's hard to be to be Daniel Day-Lewis is a whole other,
yeah.
To be a genius at it is one thing. But to simply be a working actor is a pretty cush gig once you get, once you're in on the joke.
Yeah.
They're hiring you.
With writing, would you say that the most challenging part is starting? That as a writer like myself, I so enjoy getting into it, but until I force myself to sit down and find the rhythm, it feels like the biggest chore to sit down and begin.
Well, I think every part of it is hard. I think people who do a lot of writing really do go, it's about sitting down in the chair. Like, you can't not be in the chair, or you got a standing desk, I guess. But I mean, there's no way around it. You know what I mean? Every day is beginning. Every day, like I have a friend, a big ghostwriter, a guy named David Ritz, who's a good friend of mine, and he says you got to hold your nose and jump every time. You know what I mean? Hold your nose and jump, man. And so you got to. But acting is a different thing, because what you're doing, it's like, first of all, it's you, which is weird. You know, one thing that weirded me out about acting was what an intense identification with your face it is on some level. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And writing is just much more like, here, I put some real thought into this thing. This is my work. Judge it. Going into an audition and like a momentary, it's like going on a OK Cupid date or something. You know what I mean? It's like, who the fuck knows what's going to happen? You know, it's like a date. It's like, it's a volatile, energetic boom, and you can be prepared and you can be good, but it's definitely not the same as like, I worked on this script for a year. Here's what I do. You know what I mean? Acting is, and then there's people who are just, and also, you walk in and they're just immediately going, no. Like, you're not what I envisioned.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to get into the details of it, here's another really interesting thing. When I had a show on the air in 2000, briefly, a TV show I created with my old partner called Brutally Normal, that was on the WB for 6 months, 6 episodes, mid-season replacement. And when we hired actors, like for the guest star parts week to week, I'd been an actor. All we cared about, like when we were watching them, we weren't even watching them. We were watching to see if what we had written was any good and the scene worked. And that blew my mind, that like the writers were probably the whole time thinking about themselves, even more like, are you making my material work? Yeah. You know what I mean? Which was very interesting to me. So
that is interesting. I've never, of all the people we've talked to about auditions, I've never once heard that perspective. That's wild, but it makes sense.
They're not writers. They didn't get both sides of it. You know what I mean? So they didn't think that. They didn't understand that. Because that's how self-obsessed we all are. But acting, I wish I hadn't quit. I quit acting, and I wish I hadn't, because I got a lot of leads in movies that fell through. They weren't big movies, but like things happened. But it's hard to get even the level of success I had, you know what I mean? Where I never had to do anything else. And then I got strung out, and I just started writing poetry, and I just sort of like undealt with stuff from my adolescent years, and sort of trauma of my life just caught up with me. And I could not maintain sort of the ambition and the kind of legitimacy. And I just went kind of funky, you know what I mean? And I remember standing one time outside a methadone clinic and just going, this is a lot realer than a fucking acting audition. Fuck acting. It's fucking bullshit. You know what I mean? And that's a kind of a crazy thought, although it seemed real at the time. And then, I got lucky with the writing thing, just sort of happened in the middle of all that. But
well, sometimes it's weird to me, like the whole acting thing, like the whole profession of acting is just kind of strange to me sometimes if I really, really think about it. Like sometimes I'll be watching a movie and it'll be like some prestigious, well-known actors that are respectable, like the highest of their kind in what they do. But even then I'm watching, and sometimes I just think like, it's so strange that in this like world of all of these very serious things going on and all of these problems that need to be solved, there's this group of people that have chosen to never stop playing pretend. And they actually make a lot of money doing it. And that aspect of it to me is just sometimes strange. Like even being in front of the camera, sometimes I wonder, like, what the hell are we doing? This is so weird that we're playing.
Well, I mean, it's clearly, storytelling has been a function throughout all history and all cultures. I mean, this is part of, it's a real I mean, the Greeks, whatever. I mean, it's a service, and it's also, it can get the monetary aspect, of it has kind of, influenced it, but it's some kind of noble thing. There have been jesters and storytellers, and I mean, this is how we make sense of the world. So, but the funny thing about that is when you realize is like, and I say it like, no matter what, like being an actor, you can be a real great actor and be put in some ridiculous movie and you're fucked. You know what I mean? And like, you can't, and then you'll see a movie and you go, why is every actor in this movie great? Because the director understands what the thing's about. Like if you don't get the river to swim in, you can't swim. You can be the greatest swimmer in the world. You get put in a bad river. You're not going to be doing any good swimming. So it's a very passive, it's incredibly sort of bold in a way because you get to do your thing and say your stuff, but you're really at the mercy of the story you're in and of the conception of the director. Directing is really a very, that's real high. It's intense. Like for people who can really do it, that's a really intense job because it's everything. Yeah. And so the other thing I noticed about acting was I would always end up rewriting my parts and like improvising, usually because I wasn't in any great material where, they were sort of better. And it wasn't artistic enough for me because I had a idea of something I wanted to convey that was more than just being part of whatever. I wanted to convey my version of the world, not just my version of myself within someone else's world. And I guess that's what really hit me and why I give it up. But really, I just was like, it just became meaningless to me and kind of goofy, like you're saying, where I got to that. Plus, I'm like writing poetry and getting strung out. And it was a drag because I like it, and I was in the movie in 2017 and it's fun, it's fun. I don't think it's when I did Hamburger Hill, I wrote a book the whole time. I wrote in the car every day, there and back to the set, and wrote this novel that I never got published about like a military journal of the whole experience. But and the producer said to me, this woman, Marcia Nasher, said, you're not going to be an actor. That's not going to be creative enough for you. You're not going to be interested in that. It's not enough for you. You know what I mean? It's like, because there is a certain part of it that is sort of like, you're the pawn on the chessboard, but you ain't the guy playing chess, You're just a piece out there.
We're gonna circle back a little bit, actually, all the way back to 1984. We were probably just learning to crawl. Speaking of the after school special, you were talking about. You were according to IMDb, and I always preface it with according to IMDb because sometimes they let us down. But your first credit was the CBS school break special called "All the Kids Do It." You played Denny. To my surprise, Danny DeVito starred in this, and Henry Winkler directed it. So I was just curious if you had any memories from that production or working with them.
Oh, completely, man. That was my first gig, man, and ever. And Henry gave me the part, but they were like worried. They were like, again with the writing, they were like, don't improvise too much, or they were worried I was going to even be too forceful. I played this drunk kid. It was very funny. Henry got DeVito to be in it because he was his friend. I mean, this is not long after the Fonz. I mean, he was Henry fucking Winkler. You know what I mean? It was like, no fucking joke. You know what I mean? So, and Scott Baio, who was a huge star. Scott was
Quantum Leap, baby.
Kid. Yeah, he was the star.
That's Spacula.
Damn it.
Come on, man. Scott Baio was Charles in Charge.
Oh, fuck. I'm sorry. Quantum Leap was on last night.
Yeah.
And his father was his manager, who was a funny guy. And there was a good actor in it too named George Zunzo, who's in The Deer Hunter. And I just remember a great thing. There's a great YouTube clip. Somehow my son found it of me where this guy gave us his favorite car. This kid that we used, a kid who rented the car to the production. and I crashed it. Not badly, but like in a scene, I had just learned to drive and I'm driving and I like drove it into like a railroad tie or something. And there's a camera on us and you see the reaction. And I think it's on YouTube. Actually,
I hate to cut you. I'm sorry. Is there such thing as a small crash? He said it was a crash, but not a bad. But he would have said incident. Once you say crash, something's crumbled. Yeah. It crashed.
It wasn't. I didn't ruin the car. I did hit it a little bit.
Okay.
God.
It was a ding.
He thought it was the funniest thing, man. It killed him. I mean, he's just laughing at me.
Oh my God. I thought that was a fucking...
That was, it was fun, you know what I mean? And I just remember his father was great. I remember his father saying to me, his father's like an Italian Brooklyn, like older, like heavy set, like gangster, you know what I mean? Like sounding like a gangster. And he was talking about like teen magazines. He goes, hey, dummy, you want to be in Pop Magazine? You want to be in Pop Magazine? They got like they were on the set. I said, no, man. I'm thinking like, no, I'm like young Marlon Brando. I don't want to be a fucking teen magazine. I'm an artist, man. He's like, I'm like, no, man, I don't want to. It's so cool. I don't need to be in any teen magazines. He goes, fine, shoot yourself. Shoot yourself. You know, no, it was, it was a funny introduction. Listen, it's always funny, no matter who you are or what you do, when you have an experience of people like that, which is like Happy Days. You know, you grow up watching that shit, and then these cats are less real to you, and you're in cahoots with them. Like, even like, because of me and my son's a huge SpongeBob fan. And so when I was working on the Grinch, I was working on that over at the company. In the marketing department was this guy, Derek Dryman, whose name is on all the first season of SpongeBob, right in the beginning. And my son was going crazy. We were like, Derek Dryman, and I'm like the writer. He's like in the marketing department, but I'm like going to him, you're Derek Dryman. You know what I mean? Even at this point, like, it's always fun because your experiences, they're like up there as this thing. And then all of a sudden you're like in with them, and the Fonz, I mean, it didn't get any more sort of oddly iconic. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah, he's a superstar.
Even Pulp Fiction talks about the Fonz, right? So
yeah. Well, then I think I could imagine that the next experience was kind of similar because also in 1984 you were in The Wildlife. This was written by Cameron Crowe, which I'm not sure if he was like the Cameron Crowe that we know today at this time. I think he had done
Fast Times. No, he was getting there, and he had already done a lot of his Rolling Stone stuff. That's what that movie's about. He did that when he was 16. So this was sort of like he was not a director yet.
But this set had like all the party boys from the 80s. You got like Chris Penn, Eric Stoltz, Leah Thompson, Rick Moranis, Randy Quaid. So I was just curious, like going from a after school special set to like something like this.
I don't think Leah Thompson was in the movie. I think Jenny Wright was in the movie.
Oh, okay. That's what I was saying about IMDb.
Well, she was a party boy too now.
yeah.
Jenny is a serious party boy. Anyway, Jenny got me the part because I knew her, or she said to them, I auditioned, and there was a kid named Michael Bowen was in that. The interesting thing about that movie was Chris had gotten it together to lose all this weight and like take his shot at being a leading man. Like he had put together like the one chunk of discipline of his life. You know what I mean? For like eating well and working out. And he was like buffed out and looking amazingly in shape, before like me similarly, trying to be good. So he just fell off the rails, you know what I mean? And went and became, the wild man he was. The cool thing about that movie was, first of all, Cameron was really sweet to me. And again, like I hit it off with him. I mean, I wonder if he would remember. He was so nice to me. And I was foolish and didn't stay up with him. And, because it was a friendship possibility. And he was, I wasn't a writer at that point. I wasn't even thinking about it. But he was a really sweet kid. He had the guy who directed that was more a producer. And he had no business directing the movie. He was a famous producer named Art Linson, who's a famous Hollywood character and produced Fast Times. The the great thing about that movie was I made a real connection with Rick Moranis, who was an SC. It was like his first thing, and they were paying him all this money, and he was a SCTV star. You know, he wasn't a movie star yet. And then later, I wrote Little Giants. And the interesting thing is, my brother, who was a producer who passed away, became really good friends with Rick over the year later, because they did Spaceballs together and played golf with them forever. But I knew Rick first. I met him on that movie, and we really hit it off. And we would just sit and talk on the set, and he was just cool, man. You know, he was cool.
That's cool. He's one of those people that like managed to stay out of the tabloids enough to where, like, when I think of Rick Moranis, I can only imagine him as the characters he's played. Like, I know absolutely nothing about
Rick is
Moranis,
very private. And
he's a great dad. He's a great dad, because I remember, if I'm not mistaken, he retired from acting for a while to take care of his kids. Take care of his kids. Yeah,
because his wife passed away, man.
I'm saying, but he stayed for the kids too. He didn't jump back in.
He did. He retired from acting. His wife passed away. He also supposedly won a Grammy for some country record he made. But you know, I haven't talked to him in a long time. I think I saw him at my brother's memorial. He's a sweet guy. He's also, you know, very brilliant. I mean, he's truly definitely funny.
I mean,
although it's funny
figured out a way to shrink children down to like this.
And then he blew them up. He blew them up. Now, the world just got treated to one of the things that I really love. In 2022, Top Gun Maverick came out, and the world got to see Val Kilmer on screen again. But back in 1985, you were in Real Genius with Val Kilmer. What was it like to work with that Val Kilmer at that time? Now tell it, man. Don't hold back.
Val, it's funny, you know, my friend who I just told you about did his book recently, and I saw him recently. You know, he's all fucked up with he's real sick, you know. Mm-hmm. He had this tube and whatever. The funny thing, the great story, I mean, I tell a story because it's good for me. You know, I was second to get the lead in that movie behind Val. So it was like Val was just too. They took him, and I was like, you know, whatever. It was early Brian Grazer, you know, became a hugest producer. Early movie. We do a read-through at a theater in Hollywood, at a 99-seat theater. We do the first read-through of the script. Val, here, I'll start here. I remember when I first came to town, me and Val had the same agent, at William Morris. And I remember being in there, and I'm like a kid. I'm like kind of nervous, like, what is this shit? Like, I'm an agent. He walks in with this kid, with this black kid. I don't know who it was. Like, he owns the fucking agency. I mean, his attitude, that Val Kilmer entitlement, it's incredible. Like, just his fucking way of being is amazing, man. You know what I mean? So anyway, so we do this read through of the fucking movie. I'm playing the part I play. My buddy plays the bad guy, Kent. That's a good friend of mine. Val lays on his back like this the whole time, never looks up, never whatever, and just reads on his back with the script like he couldn't give a fuck about anything or anyone. Grazer fires him after the reading and hires me to play the lead and gives me the part. And of course, his agent fucking gets it back and is just kind of making a point with him. You know, for a minute, I thought I was going to be the star of the movie. But that's Val, you know, that was how Val was. And, you know, he's into this whole, I mean, he's legit, you know, he's a legit narcissist, talent madman. You know what I mean? You give him his due. He's a real actor. You know what I mean? He's got this whole Mark Twain obsession. I mean, he's a super creative, you know, he fancies himself a poet. I don't, you know, no offense. I'm not sure the poetry's great, but he writes it. And it matters.
he's doing that trying thing.
No, he's a legit. He's wild. He's a force. You know, you got to. I always respect that. You know, no matter what. There's a guy who just to make money, you know, ended up in a bunch of terrible, stupid movies. You know what I mean? Like his whole middle career is just nonsense. You know what I mean? But that again, that's the gig, you know what I mean? It's lucrative. People know who you are, but you're not in control of the storytelling. And so you don't get to decide.
Yeah.
Plus, it's not good for your back to read on your back. I like to read my scripts on my stomach. That's how I read mine on my belly. So your belly up.
It was great. Yeah, I mean, and he's not. It's funny. He's not Daniel again, or these guys who somehow, only end up in really high movies who don't care. I'm sure he had some kind of money. There was money reasons for that stuff. Mickey Rourke was similar. They start off a certain way, and anyway, yeah. But that was Val was, and when I saw him recently, man, he didn't even remember. He didn't remember. He was real sick. He's real, real sick. Yeah. I mean, I was no joke. I mean, that was not the same person.
Yeah.
Also, he was a startlingly beautiful. I mean, he was just like a kid. He was like a little wise guy, God. Pretty boy, but arty. He was on top, man.
Yeah,
I like it.
I agree. He, I grew up on him. I think I like people like that. That like you hear stories like that about them, because I kind of assume that everybody in the industry that makes it to that degree has that kind of narcissistic personality. So like, if they're displaying anything beyond that, I just kind of scoff at it as like, oh, your PR person told you to say it like that or to act this certain way. Like, I like Kanye West. I like Val Kilmer, Christian Bale, like the ones that are getting in trouble for not always being nice. I assume everybody is not always nice. So I appreciate the ones.
Kanye West is a truly troubled genius. I mean, you know what I mean? Val Kilmer is not Kanye West. Kanye West is a serious talent. He's also a serious nut.
I think Val Kilmer
negatively, he's got real bipolar. I mean, but I mean, he's a big cultural figure. I mean, I just watched that documentary on him. I mean,
Genius.
He's a genius, man, and a musical. Yeah, he's. Let's not put Val up with Kanye.
Okay, I won't. All right.
I'll put Val up with God. His name is slipping my mind right now. It was in the movie with the lion. The Godfather. What's the Godfather's name?
Pacino?
No. You're talking about why would you do me like this?
Brando. Yeah. When Marlon Brando and Val Kilmer were in that film, right. I think that's when he met his match as far as.
Right. No, and there's another one. Well, Marlon Brando is like. That's another one. He's on the Kanye. He changed acting. I mean,
I feel so bad for the director of that film having to keep reining. As soon as he gets Marlon Brando reining, like, no, you can't have the little person next to you. Now, Val, what the hell are you doing?
All they were missing is Edward Norton on set, and it would have been a trifecta.
Supposedly, Val did some movie in Africa where he lived out in the wilds, and they said the wildest animal out there is Val.
Was that the Island of Dr. Moreau?
I think that's a movie I was thinking of. Yeah.
Oh, okay, I got you. Well, that was probably the same thing.
Anyways,
let's move on.
Kanye up, Val down.
Completely unrelated topic. Howard the Duck. This is in 1986. We covered this film a little bit ago.
People really have
They love it.
It's way out, that movie.
Well, and when we talk to a lot of the cast and crew from it, the running trend that we've noticed is that it was a wild production of just chaos for the most part. What was your experience when you were there?
George Lucas had to come in and direct. Like, he had to come in and take over and direct some scenes. I think he might have been directed the scenes I was in. My experience was Downey had the part. Robert Downey Jr. had the part. He got that Rodney Dangerfield movie and couldn't take it. And so I got it. I went up, I knew Tim, I think Robbins from did I meet him there? I knew him from the Actors Gang, from his acting, from his theater shit. I met John, David Paymer, I was hung out with, it was his husband and wife who had written, I think they had worked on even maybe American Graffiti. They knew him, Willard Huck and Gloria Katz, and they couldn't do it. They couldn't direct, you know what I mean? It was just got out of control on them. And so George Lucas had to come in. It was a weird movie, I mean, I always tell the same story, that the guy who stabbed me, the guy in the duck suit who stabbed me through the ear ended up choking me in Child's Play in the Chucky outfit. This guy, Ed Gale.
Hey, got a good agent.
Yeah, he's the dude, the Mallard line in the bar fight.
Oh my gosh! Oh man, listen,
Yeah.
that whole thing. It's just what he just said. I didn't know that Robert Downey Jr. almost got that part because what's weird
No,
about that
it
is
was his part. It was his part. I mean, he just got a better part, so he had to not take it.
what's crazy about that is how crazy that would have been full circle. He really is Iron Man because he would have been in the first Marvel film ever.
Oh, that's
and
true.
then came back and did Iron Man. That's weird. Wow.
Yeah.
Now in 1987, you reunite with the great Rick Moranis, appearing in one of my favorite movies of all time, Spaceballs, which of course starred the late great John Candy, who you go on to work with through Cool Run and Sankaman. You did. Now we've heard that Mel Brooks is a very particular director. What was your experience like working with him?
You know, I came back from Hamburger Hill, and my brother was the producer of that movie. You know, Mel loved my brother, and then it's funny, you know, I had done a play with Bill Pullman, and my brother, we had a lot to do with getting Bill the lead in that movie. My brother did, I did, you know what I mean? But brought Bill because I had done this play with Bill, and Bill got Ruthless People from a friend of mine too because he had this crazy hairdo when he. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie. Bill Pullman's in this movie called Ruthless People. He's got this two-tone hair. He steals. Bill's a good friend of mine, and so it was, it was like my brother's the producer. I just did this movie in the Philippines. Like, do this line, you know what I mean? And so I say one line. I say, "Yabol on helmet," you know what I mean? And and I knew Rick, and then Candy. I have an incredible story about Candy when we get to the Cool Runnings part. That's truly wild.
Yes, yes. I saw some stuff on Reddit that cued me in. I'm very excited to get to that.
Yeah. In fact, I think they when I released my book, I wrote a story for something. I released the story. I wrote a short story about it. Mel was, Mel does his thing. You know what I mean? I mean, Rick was very also. There was like two comedy titans going at it. You know, two comedy thinkers.
Yeah.
John was. Later, I found out not so happy about the whole thing, but Rick and Mel were very, they were real, the way Seinfeld likes to make believe he's like, comedy scientist #1, joke engineer, you know what I mean? These guys were doing it not as stand-up, but as bits and stuff, and they were really, there you go. So they were for real doing it, you know what I mean? These cats were. The two of them. Rick is very funny in that movie. Rick is very, and they wouldn't do a sequel because Rick wanted like money like Mel. He wanted like, Mel's idea was to do a sequel called Spaceballs 2: The Search for More Money.
I feel like people don't appreciate Rick Moranis' humor enough for being as funny as he is. He doesn't get enough credit because, like, most people that are considered the funny guys in Hollywood, like your Ryan Reynolds, Jim Carrey, Adam Sandler, they're usually the ones that are like at the head of the joke. And Rick Moranis is usually like he's so like a passive performer. Like usually it's a reaction or something that's happening to him. But people don't realize that takes almost more acting chops to make the reaction to something as hilarious as what's actually happening. And he did that so well. Big Bully was such a great movie with him. And because of him.
I think you guys talked about him quitting. The difference between him and those guys is just.
He's on another level. Now,
he's just not ambitious like that. He's got some context for his life that's other than the desperation to be loved and worshipped on that level of ambition.
He's great at acting, but the acting does not define him. That he's more than just an actor.
Yeah, and he didn't need to sort of do the thing Adam did and Carrie did, where it's like, Sandler's a production company. It's like he's. It's like take over show business, like these guys, Seth Rogen, Jonah. I think Jonah Hill's production company is called 80-Year Plan or something. These guys want to, they want to own, they get it. They want to LeBron out. You know what I mean? They want to they want to be like acting LeBrons or something, and take it easy. You know what I mean? They want to be the
we own our masters.
Hey, go for it. I say go for it now.
Yeah, you get it. But Rick's not like that. Rick is not about that. Rick was about something else. And I would say, a little bit different level of intellect. Like Rick's a really bright dude. You know what I mean? Like he's New York Review of Books smart. You know what I mean? Like I'm sure he could have had an academic career. He's not he's not just sort of like some, comedy schmo.
And he has a Grammy.
That's
They told us
I was so caught up
That's
on just the country western part. I didn't even hear the Grammy.
Oh, yeah, you
part.
definitely got a
That's what
Grammy.
I hear. That's what I hear.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a fun. It's funny. I don't have a ton of credits, but I have a lot of them that really mean something to people. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah,
very much so.
Weird. Like Real Genius, some people love. Howard the Duck has some weird cult thing. Spaceballs is a cult thing. Cool Runnings is like insane. I mean, that's like a whole other level. And also, I wrote it, so it's a different thing for me.
You got to look out for those Howard the Duck fans. Most of them are perverts.
No, there are a lot of Howard the Duck where people are just kind of fascinated by that weirdness. You know what I mean?
It's weirder if you go back as an adult and watch it, because trust me, as a child, that's a story for another day. Now, we're still in 1987. Now, you speaking of the movies that people really love, you played Private Martin Bienstock in the star-studded Hamburger Hill. Bienstock, I knew I was going to do that. I always say Bienstock for some reason. Bienstock in the star-studded Hamburger Hill. Now, sharing the screen with
star-studded then, boy.
It was on its way as a precursor, the prequel to star-studdedness. Courtney B. Vance, Steven Weber, Dylan McDermott, and of course, one of my favorite actors of all time, and Courtney, you too as well, Don Cheadle, who you said in a Reddit interview was probably the most talented actor you've ever worked with. Now, I want to know
what was the most talented actor I've ever worked with. One of the most talented people I've ever worked with. He just could do everything. He was very, very talented. You know what I mean?
Would you consider him a method actor? What was it about him in particular, his style? What was it that really threw you?
He just was good. You know what I mean? And he had he's got a quality. Again, he's a good actor, but he just could dance. You got the feeling with ease, he could just do a lot of things. You know what I mean? And we were good friends on that movie. I lost touch with him over me and him and Courtney. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyway, Don was good, but he didn't get a chance to really do it in that movie. You know what I mean? No. So
now his performance at Rosewood is one of his Hotel Rwanda is one of the best performances he's ever done. Both of those films, he really does it in.
Oh, he's good. He's major. Yeah.
In 1988, you starred in an episode of Sledgehammer called Sledge Rattle.
Come on, don't bring that shit up, man.
I've got to because it was directed by Bill Bixby, and we talked to David Pressman, who was in it.
Was it directed by Bill Bixby, the actor?
According to IMDb, but based on your confusion right now, I'm going to imagine that you can't answer the
I don't remember. That's amazing. Bill Bixby.
I gotta find out now. Go ahead.
Okay, so we'll move on. Still in 1988, you played Jack Santos.
And there you go. And there's another credit. I just did a bunch of interviews about this anniversary of how did I get in all these famous movies, man? It's really all these cared about movies. It's really weird, man.
Well, Child's Play has a special place in your heart.
Yeah, it's a movie that fucked me up as a child.
It's the first one you've ever seen, wasn't it?
Yes, it's the first horror film I've ever seen, and it fucked me up. Again, it's like The Exorcist meets the worst Ken doll ever, because, again, not only are the batteries not there, he turns his fucking head around. That's animatronically incorrect.
Well, not animatronically, but anatomically, yes.
Both.
Is there anything about that set you remember? Any crazy stories?
I just was talking about that so much. These guys interviewed for hours about. No. I told the one story that I'll tell again. The funny thing to me about that movie was, it's with Chris Sarandon and Brad Dourif are in it. And in 1975, those two guys are in like the two greatest movies of the 70s, both nominated for Best Supporting Actor, Dog Day Afternoon and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And I imagine they both thought like, oh, this is how it's going to be. We're going to be in one great genius masterpiece after another and get Academy Award nominations. And 13 years later, they're in this ridiculous horror movie with a doll. You know what I mean? There's acting. That's all you need to know about acting. And then funnier than that, and then it makes Brad's career. He's probably made more money on that than anything. So for Brad, it turns into like a windfall. Acting is outrageous. It's an absurd thing. So, that movie was okay. I hit it off with the director, this guy, Tom Holland, funny guy, wanted to give me the lead. I was too young, gave it to Chris. And so he gave me that part, you know what I mean? And it was fun to act with Chris. And You know, I watch that. I like it. I like it when I juggle the head back and forth. Actually, I'm pretty good at that movie, man. I'm not always happy with the shit I do, but that wasn't bad. I was a good idiot playing with that thing, and then he chokes me. It's
Well, I'm pretty sure Netflix will be calling soon with the movies that made us. They got to get around the Child's Play sometime, right?
Yeah.
They just did a huge AMC thing about the entire franchise because they're doing a TV show with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just did a big long video interview about that, man. Like an hour video interview all about Child's Play. You know, everybody from it. You know.
Good grief.
Child's Play, the film, internet. So don't get too crazy. I just talked for 2 straight hours about Child's Play.
Yeah, these kids at council.
It's like it's really fetishized. I mean, people really are into Child's Play.
Yeah, and especially what was the guy's name? Brad, who he was also in one of the Exorcist sequels, which he was fantastic in. But I mean, I feel like
he's a great actor, man.
But
he's incredible.
If you get in a project like that, it's like if you don't want to, you don't really have to work again. You could just live off of Comic-Con appearances and residuals.
I have a friend who does that, a guy who makes a lot of his money now, a guy named Bill Mosley. I forget, he's in Leatherneck or something. Bill is makes a lot of his money on the Comic-Con action. It's amazing. Yeah, this whole thing. I don't
Bill
even know.
Mosley, is that like he's in a lot of the Rob Zombie movies? Is that like how? Oh, okay, yeah, he's fantastic. Again, this is according to IMDb. 1988's Blueberry Hill was the last feature that
I was terrible in that. I didn't want to talk about it. It was nice, you know. It was just a dump. That's a small. It would, you know, they were nice people. I mean, and the girl was nice. I forget her name. I liked her.
Well, your response to that is that like preceded a nearly 3-decade hiatus from acting. Did that have anything to do with it?
No. Only heroine.
Oh, okay. That would be a good reason to.
Okay.
And then we'll. I guess you didn't come back into acting until 1,000 Junkies, which we'll get into here very shortly.
I want to ask before we move on from acting: is there any advice that you want to give any aspiring actors out there other than don't do it?
I wouldn't give anyone the advice not to do it. I mean, the thing about acting now, the thing about everything now is, because of these phones, because of what the world is, you just make your own content. The only thing you need to do is not wait around. You know, you don't have to anymore. I mean, you know, first of all, people film their own auditions now. The whole thing is completely different. So now we're in a world where being an actor means sort of having to be a writer a little bit or whatever. And, you know, you got to make your own content. You got to get things up there. You know, give evidence of that you're capable and you can do stuff. But I think it's probably a very different racket than it was. You know what I mean? They ain't flying. I mean, you know, guys would come from New York first class. They put them up the bell, do screen tests and shit. I mean, it was a whole different world. You know what I mean? Of like screen tests. You know what I mean? It was like Hollywood was a thing. Everything's TV. You know, TV is king. That's where all the art movies are. It's been so long for me. I don't know, but I can imagine it's still difficult. And if you got the, you know, I have a line in the book I wrote called Straight Dope, which is, you know, actors and I have the book right here. Actors and writers don't work often, but when they do, they make a lot of money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you know, and it's like, you know, there are a lot of actors, you know, you can work 16 days a year. You know what I mean? I mean, there's all kinds of ways to be an actor out here. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And people do it. Like, you know, people live that life. I mean, it's been a long time since I did. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I don't know, but people are still doing it, and people are doing stand up. Like my son does stand up, acting. I mean, everybody. I don't think people are as much sort of waiting around like they used to. You know what I mean? They're doing stand up. They're writing stuff. People get that, like, it ain't about, you know, no one's coming to Shraff's discovering you like Lana Turner. You know, it ain't happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. All right, let's move right into the writing. According to IMDb, again, your writing career began with 2017's Cool Runnings, and with the exception of your film A Thousand Junkies, you've said that the most of the early scripts you're credited on were for you're coming in on rewrites or just like punch ups, but Cool Runnings was the one that felt most like yours, you said. For people who don't really understand the politics behind writing credits, could you explain why that is? Like how you could have your name on something but not feel like it's yours?
You want me to talk about Cool Runnings? Or you want me to talk about that?
Just in general. Like
Little Giants. Here's Little Giants. This is what happened on Little Giants. So these guys, some advertising guys, I think they are, come up with the idea for Little Giants. They write a script. They decide they want to make the script. Script's not good. They bring us in as production rewrite guys. So they've got a production office open. Spielberg is like running the show. He's got this director. The craziest thing that I just recently realized is the director of Little Giants. It's a guy named Dwayne Dunham, who is the editor of Blue Velvet. David Lynch movie of all strange.
Fantastic.
Pollinations. Anyway, we come in, we write a really good draft that they finally like. I mean, this is how this went on that one. We do a lot of writing. At first, one day Spielberg said to us, "Do you guys have any real talent?" And I left the room and went and just started writing my ass off. Like, "I'll prove to you, Stephen. I'll prove to you I can write." And then he called me. It was cool. He called me the next day from his house to tell me he liked what I had done. But we read a script finally. All this stuff that was a weird movie. This reader there reads it and says, "We really like this." It finally makes it not a weird anti-feminist movie. We finish. We write the whole script. They do it great. We watch the scene where she's kissing her hand, done with this kid, Jonathan Taylor Thomas, who was on that Tim Allen. He does it great. They didn't cast him. Yeah. We're like, okay, we're the writer. We've done this great job. Then they end up, hiring comedy punch-up guys after us. They end up hiring all kinds of people. The only thing in that movie that I wrote, my partner didn't write. He sort of was like a director of the scripts. He was a story guy. Were the two big scenes, the one where Ed O'Neill tells her she thinks she's pretty, he thinks she's pretty, the two big emotional scenes, and the kissing one. Two real scenes, Mm-hmm. Everything else, they ended up writing. So, and then somehow we arbitrated and got credit. So we end up writing this whole script. They really love it. And then they just keep bringing it. They don't do that as much anymore. Keep bringing on comedy punch-up guys. They do it a lot in animation. Comedy punch-up. And it ends up being like two scenes remaining. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Cool Runnings was different. Cool Runnings was a different case. It was our first experience. That was a case where they had a bad movie called Blue Maga. I think the best thing I did for that movie was retitle it Cool Runnings, because my brother had been to Jamaica, and there was this expression, Cool Runnings, like go peacefully, Cool Runnings, cool running. And it's funny, you say you're dead man. That's the only line I didn't write. I didn't come up with the character names. I didn't write you dead man, and I didn't come up with the lucky egg. People love you dead man. The only thing, luckily, I did write Feel the Rhythm, Feel the Rhyme, Get On Up, It's Bobsled Time, which is even more famous, or equally famous. So, but I wrote, that movie was a movie where, I worked on the guy who I work now with a guy named Chris Meledandri, who's in charge of, who runs Illumination. He came up with the Minions. He's a huge animation mogul, and I worked for him for 5 years now. We got reunited. But he worked on the script with us. It was our first script. But that movie, that really is my movie. Like my sensibility. They let me do it. The woman who passed away, who was a studio head named Dawn Steele, the producer, didn't let them change my shit. Didn't let them rewrite me. Fought for me. There's a lot of stuff in that movie I'm really very proud of. I think are really good commercial scenes. And it's a beloved movie. I'm always shocked by how loved that movie. people go crazy. It's they just love it in a kind of open-hearted way. It's really touching, because me and my partner did not expect that. We were not happy about it. We thought it was dumb. When we didn't realize that it would age so well and that it would be so powerful to people,
Very much so.
And last the way it did.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
So anyway, but that was the one. So that's the one movie, the one commercial movie, and then the Grinch. But the Grinch was you couldn't really do that much, but I had to take over and I wrote most of it. I was proud of the animation. Unfortunately, and I like him a lot. He's a great guy, but Pharrell got hired to do the animation, and I was doing it up until then because I'm a good reader of my own poetry, and he wouldn't do it. But that's a later story. He would only do an imitation of me. Pharrell's a funny dude, man. He's a genius. A funny dude.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I did not know we were going to get Pharrell in this story at all. All right. Now, but just you, baby. Now, while we're still on Cool Runnings, now the Pride Power scene is iconic, and you've stated that it's your favorite scene. As the writer, what makes you so proud to have written that scene?
I just like the active nature of it, and that it sort of gets to sort of like the themes of the movie. You know what I mean? What's interesting? I saw that movie recently. I went to do a Q&A and watch it on a rooftop somewhere with a bunch of people. What's cool about that movie is it's a Black Power movie that doesn't tweak Americans because it's not about the American race issue. It's about a global. So it takes it to the Germans, and all the white people don't have to feel bad. Swiss. And they can enjoy it, but it's a straight up Black Power movie. You know what I mean? Black identity movie, and I grew up in all that stuff. I'm glad the Jamaicans like it so much. I could never get hired to write that movie in a million years now. I mean, you can't have a white guy write that movie, which is understandable. But I love that scene just because it's active and it's just that this energetic transference and it's clean. It's got no bullshit and it bonds these two and he comes in and it just works. You know what I mean? It's just a really good piece of.
I'm interested.
Writing.
Was it your favorite part when you got done writing it, or did it become your favorite part once you saw it performed?
Yeah, it helps. I mean, listen, it don't matter. All that matters is what's up there. You know what I mean? So you can fuck up anything. I mean, the animation stuff, man, it's hard, to keep it alive. So, I mean, it can go. You write stuff you think is going to be good, and it's just terrible. But yes, it was. In the context of the movie, I thought he was great, Malik. I thought both those guys were great. The kid who plays Junior was the reader. He came in to read the other actors. He wasn't even on for the movie.
Dad, I am going to be some. He got to work with Leon, man. The one named Leon. Yeah. No last name needed.
Yeah, Leon was a trip. I think they offered that part to Denzel of all the comical things.
Wow.
I saw that. Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, so yeah, that's why I like that. I like that.
Is it true that in the early draft of the script they had Sanka having sex with Scandinavian ski bunnies, but the studio made you take that out, or is that just a rumor?
No, I told you that I was writing it like that, like him. He came out from under the sheets with these two, like they were up at the top. Flying there, these two beautiful blondes, and then out from the bottom of the bed comes Sanka, like he's been scuba diving. And Chris is a genius. My friend Chris, who it's funny. I'm going to see it. There's a Minion screening today. I got to go to. Being a good company man, I'm going to go to the Minion screening and support. Take my kid, who's also working there a little bit. My son Stanley. Yeah, Chris was like, great. That's great. Move it over a little here, a little less of that. He never discouraged me. He just kept making it more and more G, more and more family, more and more whatever, in a very smart way. You know what I mean? But he never kind of was like, "The fuck are you doing, man? It's not a fun. You can't have him smoking weed." You know what I mean? He didn't do that to me. He just shifted me.
All right.
But I'll tell you, you want to hear the candy story? Because the candy story.
That's, I'll preface it with this, because you had the perfect pitch for it, because somebody asked in the AMA if you'd ever partied with John Candy, and you had said, what the evening I had with John Candy transcends the word party. And that, I would really very much like
to know. AMA?
They'll ask me anything on Reddit that I stumbled upon from like 12 years ago that you had done, 12 years ago.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay, so what happened with Candy was this. So Candy, we're up in Calgary, and I'm fucked up. Like I got, I like when we get to Calgary, we get pulled over by customs, and my partner is like, "Oh fuck, man, Tommy, I got like a lot of heroin on me, taking over the border." He's like, "You fucking got us arrested." Chris is nervous. Everybody's nervous, man. It turns out you can't get in as a screenwriter. It's like a visiting artist. It was like a visa thing. So they brought us in under the idea that we were circus performers, is what they said. That somehow got us in the country. So the first thing was like waiting an hour and a half in customs, me thinking I'm going to jail. You know what I mean? Or getting thrown out of the country. We're there. I don't know. It's the first night. We're there. We do a read through. We do a read through that day. Candy is incredibly gregarious. He's got gifts for everyone. He's wearing a Roots jacket with the Toronto Argonauts, which he's part owner of, which is the size of a tent. He's giant, like fucking smoke. I mean, he's just a big personality, incredibly generous, big personality, like real sweet and real friendly. 3 a.m, man. I'm literally like shooting up, I think, on the bathroom, and the phone rings at 3 a.m. That weird hotel phone. My wife answers it. She says to me, "It's John Candy." It's 3 a.m, man. I'm like, "John Candy?" I'm like, "Fuck, John, really? Like, John? Come to me. What's up?"
Come to me.
Come to my room right now. Come to my room. Come to my room. He said, I'm like, now? Now. Maybe it's 2 a.m. It's fucking well past 1 a.m. I go knock on my partner. I call my partner. I go, "John Candy wants us to come to his room." He's like, "Fuck you, you full of shit. What are you doing? Are you punking me? Are you pranking me?" Like, "No, fucking get away." I go knock on his door. I'm like, "Goals. John Candy wants to come to the room." My partner's in his like a little kimono that like covers his balls like by an inch, you know what I mean? And he's got a green mask on his face, like a bad. He looks like some kind of like, tranny hooker. I mean, he's like completely, he's like, "Fuck you. I'm not going." John Candy's not. I said, "Goals. John Candy wants to come to the room." I'm telling you, John Candy, what? Okay, sure. Go knock on his door. I said, "You want to see me knock on his door? I'll knock on his door." "Yeah, go knock on his door. I want to see you knock on John Candy's door." I go, "All right, come on." We go over. He's still in his little kimono with his fucking, I think he took his mask off. His hair, long hair and a ponytail. I knock on Candy's door. Gold looks at me like, "What the fuck, man?" Candy opens the door, fully dressed, like, "Come in, come in." We go in there. He's got a cigarette, long thin cigarette. "Come in." We go in there. I don't know what drugs he's taking, but he's definitely drinking vodka. And I'm sure there's pills involved. It's 1992 or 3 or 2, I guess. He has a old VHS machine that he's either rented, a big, not VHS, 3/4, VCR, big old industry 3/4 machine. And he's watching old tapes of SCTV like he's like Norma Desmond in Sunset Boulevard watching his silent films. I mean, he's watching tapes of himself and SCTV, and we just like sort of sit down, and he goes, here, watch. He goes, "Look, Eugene's really funny here. Look, Eugene's great. Look at this. Fucking Moranis. Jew still got the first time he ever fucking spent, man. Fucking bastard." He's like, I say that shit about Moranis. And we're watching. It's like, "You want a drink? You want a drink? Whatever." No, smoking these long, thin European white cigarettes. Just smoking, man. Smoking, sitting on this couch, big, drunk, high, 3 a.m. And he fucking shuts the shit off and goes, "All right, guys, but I need you to make this really good for me. Like, I need this to be good. I need this movie to be good. I need it. I need this movie to be good. I'm nobody." And then he goes into this rant. "I'm nobody in this town. I'm nothing in this town. I'm dog boy in this town. I'm nobody." You're like going, "Dude, you're like John Candy." You know what I mean? He's like just really, intense self-doubt and pain. And he's telling the stories how his agent who had AIDS didn't want to see him and he had to go. And it's like pouring his heart out to us. You got to make this really good. I'm nothing. I guess Dog Boy means Spaceballs. I guess he means that character.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Or maybe he means it even more bizarrely. And we're just like, dude, you know, like you're John Candy, you know what I mean? We're trying to whatever. And it was intense.
Fuck up, Uncle Buck. Come on.
He was real. No, but he was really, you got it. Like you got that he was a big fat kid, you know, who had like gotten a lot of love and then had it taken away on the same level. You know what I mean? And was like, couldn't make any sense of it. You know what I mean? And luckily, I mean, the movie he died. I mean, didn't get to enjoy it, but it did come out well. But man, that was one of the most intense pouring out. Like it was just, you caught it. You saw like it was like an x-ray of his psyche. You know what I mean? It was like incredible, man. It really blew my really.
Yeah, it must have been wild to see this big personality that you've watched your whole life that have just like.
I didn't know him that well, man. I wish I had. If I'd have known he was, and also like in JFK, he's incredible. I didn't even really get what a genius he was because I had been like, you know, shooting. I mean, I didn't even give him the respect I had it for him because he was John Candy, but I didn't even really understand what a great artist he was. But that really was an incredible story, and I was so happy that it was so great in the movie, and that it came out to me because he's really great. You know, he's really good.
Yeah, he is this big force. That's why it's just so crazy to hear of him. Like you never think of somebody like that having a single vulnerable moment where they doubt themselves. It's just wild.
No, it was beyond. It was not doubt. It was
desperation.
Was literally a 10-year-old chubby. I mean, you caught what it was, you know what I mean? Like all of like, the real child in him, you know what I mean? The really helpless, scared, hurt, like, you know what I mean? Because also, you know, I wrote it in the thing. It's like to be that big a star, you know, like to have when you're, what's the next John Candy vehicle? What's the next John Candy movie? And then like 3 years later, it's like, you feel like nobody gives a shit and you're like playing the sidekick and you know, it was going to be him or Scott Glenn. Can you imagine how different the movie would have been with Scott Glenn? You know, like the real tough guy, bobsled guy. So, you know, it was interesting, but anyway, so that was fun. I mean, it's funny, you know, you run into like, I never took it that seriously, but like just running into like, I've dealt with a lot of interesting people. You know what I mean? Like Spielberg was interesting, you know, like on the next one, like, they're interesting, these figures, you know what I mean? They all got something. Like they're all who they are for a reason, you know.
Understandable. Sure. Now, for 1994's Little Giants, you worked on the screenplay along with James Ferguson and Robert Shallcross, who are credited with coming up with the story, and Michael Goldberg. What's the dynamic like? You got 4 guys in the room working on the screenplay. That's not how it works. Okay.
No, Michael was my partner. Me and Michael started because I wrote a play a long time ago that he directed. He read the play, and I never would have been a writer without Michael. Michael said to me, Michael died of brain cancer. He got brain cancer when he was 40. Michael said to me, he said, this is good. He read my play. He said, this is good. Why don't you make it a real play? I said, what does that mean? He said, well, you got to do this. 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 And so, you know, we became partners because I could type and make jokes and write dialogue, and he was good with story. And together we became a team. So Michael and me are one thing, and those guys were one thing. You know, it wasn't, and it wasn't in the style of TV. We weren't in a room. I've never written with anyone. I've never ever been in a TV room. I've never had to share the keyboard with anybody. I'm lucky that way, or I don't know how to do it. But so you know, those guys came up. Those guys were. You know, the funniest thing is everyone thinks I wrote the line "The Annexation of Puerto Rico."
I was just going to ask about that.
Such a line of mine, but I didn't. It was in the original script. Everybody, because it's so me, like that's my shtick. But I didn't do that. I didn't write you. So all the famous lines from all the movies, "You're Dead Man," "The Annexation of Puerto Rico," none of them are mine. Man. I can't take.
When he told us we were interviewing you, I'm like, "Oh, the Annexation of Puerto Rico guy." He was like, "Yeah." I was like, "But now it's a myth. The myth is gone. Mythbuster."
Now I heard Tony Romo say it on NFL. That's why.
The Romes. Now, a friend of the show, really dear friend, Dave McGifford, was an associate producer on Little Giants. Did you guys have any interaction together?
No.
Okay.
I don't remember.
Move right along then. Another film that you're credited alongside 4 other writers is 1995's Bushwhacked. This movie doesn't get a lot of love, but it holds a special place in my heart. I found it interesting that Bobby Farrelly is also credited as a writer, but under the name Danny Byers. They
were rightfully ashamed. It wasn't our. I consider the director's fault. I mean, the Farrellys. Yeah, I mean, we hooked up with Danny. The producer of it was a guy I went to high school with. We had just come off Little Giants. We were just making a lot of money. We were doing weekly rewrites. We tried, you know what I mean? We tried hard. Danny became a friend. Danny was cool. Danny and Michael became good friends. I love Danny. Danny's a sweet guy. He's a sculptor now. He's a great actor. And I don't like that movie. I think it's terrible. And I don't like, first of all, there's not a word of mine in the Snow Dogs, but we did fix. I mean, you want more Bushwhacked? I don't got anything to say about it, bro.
Everyone.
Except I respect them for using pseudonyms. So they wanted their money, but they didn't want to have their names associated with, because we fucked their script up. But it wasn't us. We didn't need to fuck their script. I mean, sometimes you fuck people's scripts up. Lynn Seifert, we made her a masterpiece out of the woman we share Cool Runnings with. We made her a great beloved movie, a masterpiece.
Yeah.
We did a good job for her. But the Farrelly brothers, maybe we screwed them. I mean, it's a director. That was just a weird movie. Although John Polito's in it, who's a trippy dude. That actor who plays,
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah,
I like it. I mean, you even warned me in our text thread leading up to this, like, be careful, but do you, man? But I personally like. I mean, I'm a Daniel Stern fan, and I grew up with that movie. So, but I always did get the like.
Well, if you have a relationship to it as a kid, it's a different thing, also. So,
but it seemed like a studio cash grab on like. People seem to like when Daniel Stern gets his ass kicked by a child. Let's multiply the children by a few and have him get his ass kicked for a whole film.
That's what it was. It was a Home Alone add-on. And then on Snow Dogs was with Danny. You know what I mean? Or did Danny have a producer on it? I think Danny might have been a producer on it. It was a National Geographic movie. And it was about the Iditarod, and what National Geographic, it was like a movie. They were the producers about like a serious Iditarod movie. You know what I mean? And then Danny was, I think, the producer, was going to be in it. And then they decided to make it a black movie, and Jordan Kerner came on, and we had did we do the TV show? It must have been before we did the TV show. And we wrote this really funny script where where like the guy named the dogs like Aretha Franklin and Reverend Ike, and like it was a really funny movie. It's a really funny, again, white guys, when you could do that, when a white guy could, have fun. and not worry that like it was going to be canceled. You know what I mean?
Good old days
back in the day.
Well, listen, I had shot a lot of, I had spent my entire heroin career in South Central Los Angeles, so I thought I was, a special white boy, but I wasn't.
You got Bill. You found out the way Bill Maher.
Yeah, I thought I had special white boy privileges, but they've been revoked. So I get it. So no problem. But it was funny though. It was a lot funnier. But then they did that movie. I don't think I have one line of it. We got credit, I guess, because we made it into The Conversion. You know what I mean? So, and then we did a couple of TV shows. I did an interesting TV show that's not on there, probably, called Dogs, about a softball team that starred Bryan Cranston and Barry Pepper as brothers in 1998.
Wow.
And Cranston, great pilot, man.
I could imagine. I don't think he is able to do something. I don't think he's able to act terribly.
Real good. Barry Pepper was his first part, so that was an interesting show. We were ahead of our time a little bit. It was like a show like they do now, just like without a procedural. It was just about guys who play softball together, and a softball team. And then we did another show I told you about that. And then Michael got sick, and I got I had a few jobs, but it just got dark.
Was the short film you were talking about? That wasn't the 15-minute Hamlet, was it? Was that something else?
I was a friend. This kid Todd Loizo, who a friend of mine knew. I just was in. Philip Seymour Hoffman was in that.
Yeah, I saw that. That's why I was very curious. Like
that was just a throwaway. I mean, again, that was just while we were a kid I knew. You know, that was just
okay.
I didn't realize. I was out of it. I didn't realize what was going on. I didn't even catch what was really happening. He just asked me to do it.
Yeah.
So I did it. And I got writing jobs after that, but I did not get anything made. You know, we did those 2 TV things. Then Michael got sick. Michael was my front man. You know, I was like, you know, because I was a mess, man. You know, but I could get my work done. You know what I mean? I wrote all those movies, fully strung out on dope. You know what I mean? Like, and then there was Shrek, and what happened was we wrote a. I'm not to say I'm the first writer on Shrek. I'm the first hired writer, I'm writing it right now. Like I'm writing Shrek right now, the new reboot. Like that's nice. Right this second. So it's all come full circle. That's what I'm doing right this second.
Amazing.
Did you get? I'm sorry because this is the first I'm hearing about a Shrek reboot. Is it like a reboot in the sense of like they're starting the franchise over with?
Yes.
Not without Mike Myers or Eddie Murphy? Or
No. Mike Myers and Eddie Murphy, we're hoping. I don't think there's Shrek without those two. But this movie's interesting. It's got a thing with the daughter's a big character. And also I wrote a Donkey prequel that I finished.
Now
that
is going to
that's
the Donkey with his own movie. That's his origin story.
And that's the character that you said you were most responsible for, right?
No, I wasn't responsible like for hiring Eddie Murphy. What happened was they do a thing where they want templates. They want to base the movie on a movie that exists. Like supposedly this Toy Story franchise is based on the movie with Tony Curtis and Sidney Poitier where they're stuck together on a train. Whatever that's called, that famous movie with Tony Curtis and Sidney Poitier. It's about
Mama from the Train?
No. It's a very famous late 50s, early 60s movie called the Defiant Ones, I believe, maybe if that was called. And they're bonded. These two opposites are bonded. They're handcuffed together. That's why it's like Buzz Lightyear and Woody.
Yeah.
So anyway, go ahead.
Oh, and I was going to ask, when you were writing on the first Shrek here, did you know you were going to be writing with Chris Farley before they re-recorded his lines, or do you have any interaction with him at all?
It was like 7 years from when that movie came out when we first started writing. Like we didn't even get close. I didn't ever write a word of dialogue. I worked on it for 6 months, never in worse shape. Like I was bad shape, man. But I did read this book. It's a 6-page book, and there's a donkey who gives him a ride. You know, a minor character on 1 page. And I said, let's make it a buddy movie. Let's not make it a movie about an ugly. You know what I mean? Let's make it a 2-handed movie. Midnight
Donkey,
Cowboy.
man.
I said, let's use Midnight Cowboy as the template.
In the morning, I'm making waffles.
Exactly. So I didn't have anything to do with that. Those guys did a great job. I deserve, but I did say, I did change the shift where I said the donkey's the co-star, not just a minor, not a minor character.
Seems like you didn't get any residuals for that because the donkey's like all those selling toys and everything.
I would have if it was WGA, but the animation movies do not go under the union. I'm dealing with that right now on the Puss in Boots 2. I got the credit. Some guys, we're going through it in a second, but that's coming out. Wow. Looks like I should get a credit on that, but we'll see.
Now, A Thousand Junkies was an official selection in the Tribeca Film Fest and won the jury prize at the Alameda International Film Festival.
Like 16 people in Alameda. No, I also wanted
all the reefs.
Film Festival.
All the reefs. What do you want to know? Now you co-wrote it with TJ Bowen. You directed and starred in it, and it's based off a short film that you made a few years prior. It's obviously a labor of love, self-produced, and it's a story that's hits very close to home. Could you speak on that, please?
Hold on.
It's also on Amazon Prime for free, so you can watch. Anyone can watch it. Like it's there.
I did not know it was on Prime.
Yeah, we'll be checking it out. In the Reddit AMA that I saw, you said A Thousand Junkies is just like Cool Runnings, except instead of 4 4 black guys in a bobsled. It's 3 white guys in a Ford Contour looking for drugs in South Central LA.
Who's now in a Volvo station wagon. Yeah, I mean, that's a joke. It's sort of like the Little Rascals are strung out and whatever. I mean, it changed my life, you know, the willingness to do it. I got clean. You know, two of my friends who I had been in AA meetings with, one who relapsed and died since. One of the kids in the movie died. It was a child star, a kid named Blake Heron, who was famous for doing a Disney movie called Shiloh about him and a dog. Sweet kid. He died after the movie, after it came out. It was, you know, we had to take, you know, all these dope movies are all hip, slick, and cool, and it seems wild, and it's whatever. We were like, let's do a workplace comedy about 3 guys who, with no drugs in it, who just can't get it together, like the Little Rascals are strung out, and how pathetic and ridiculous this life is. And you need to be clean to be able to laugh at yourself on that level. And it's literally has no drugs in it. It's just about us chasing them and chasing money and all the people's lives we mess up. And just, it's just a dark comedy, and junkies love it, man. They go fucking crazy. Like, there are Reddit strands about, my favorite one is when some guy said, Trainspotting's the greatest drug movie ever. I don't care. And this other guy said, maybe so, but nothing that happened in that movie ever happened to me, and everything that happened to A Thousand Junkies happened to me. So, you know, it's really catching on. Like, people, I get letters like on Facebook, people like, junkies fucking love it. I mean, everyone likes it. I mean, you know, if you watch it, we didn't get we got some great reviews. The one important review was like, who cares about a bunch of junkies? In the Hollywood Reporter, which was a drag. We got a release from the Orchard. It was okay. You know, we didn't get in theaters, but it would change my life, man. Like, because it just, something about finishing that movie, setting out to do it. You know, it's, directing a movie is a motherfucker, man. And with no money and no support, like when they hire you, you know, they'll write you a check to write a movie. It's sort of like your parents going, okay, you know, the teacher, finish your book report. Here's your money, you know, and you're like the kid, you know, but on that one, it was like, it was all on me, you know what I mean? And all on us to make it happen and everything. And it was a life-changing experience because I had just gotten clean in 2011. I had gotten really sick. In 2007, I had gotten something called endocarditis, with a heart valve infection. And I had to have open heart surgery and have my pulmonary valve replaced and my aortic put on it. I was in the hospital for 66 days and I got a bleeding ulcer and I was really close to dying, like as close as you can be. So I had come back from I really fucked it up. You know what I mean? It was like as dark as it gets. And so to take that and make that movie, it was like shadow owning, like owning the bad things that had happened and like sort of alchemy, like turning all that lead of your life into something gold. And for me and TJ, and it was a big deal, you know, just, you know, and it really, it did something for me, you know what I mean? Brought me back. Yeah. So, and people love it, you know what I mean? And then I got this work, you know, I've been, for 5 years now, I've been writing books. I wrote this other, you know, I wrote a book that goes along. It's sort of a companion piece called Straight Dope. I got this novel out that you can get. That's about everything we just talked about and this imaginary detective case. It's got Shrek in it. It's got this other movie in it. It's about this out-of-work screenwriter who's clean, who gets asked to go find a junkie by this girl he used to date, who she'll give him some money. And it takes him back into all this craziness. And he's trying to pitch Katzenberg and for this new movie. And it's sort of like a mishmash of everything we just talked about. And you can get that too. But cool, but Thousand Junkies, yeah, directing a movie is very interesting. It taught me a lot about screenwriting. Editing a movie taught me a lot about screenwriting. That's its whole separate thing you could talk about. Just, you really get a sense of what matters and what doesn't. You know what I mean? I mean, how much doesn't matter and what does, and where you can start a scene, and you know what I mean? Just how you make things actually work on screen. You know what I mean? As opposed to, it's all a blueprint. You know, what you realize about the screenwriting is it's all a blueprint. You know, it's not an art form. It's not a novel. It's a blueprint for someone to put something on a movie screen. And then you'll put something on a movie screen and it doesn't matter what's going on except in that frame that people are looking at, you know, and it all gets boiled down. And then where does it start? When does it end? Like the cutting of a joke, a reaction. You know, you miss 6 frames on a reaction and the joke isn't funny. I mean, it's just like, it's intense, man. You know, I mean, I have a lot of respect. Directing is hardcore. It's major concentration, major generalship. I mean, and you write the movie. So you write the movie when you write it, then you write it when you film it because you decide what the fuck you're filming, and then you write it again when you edit it because you decide what actually gets in the movie. So there's kind of 3 writings of the movie, and it's just I gotta say, like, you know, to get it together to do it again, I'd like to, but it's a serious art form because especially if you write them, you're writing, you're directing, you're using music, you're really kind of forging story in a way that's really, it's high end shit. Like someone like Ingmar Bergman, like to me, like that's just like, he's a king, man. You know, I mean, just to be able to write like that, or Fellini. I mean, these people who create these worlds, you know, there's a lot of great American directors too, and a lot of great directors now. But I got a lot of respect for film directing. I mean, it is no joke in terms of the amount of effort, concentration, dedication, time. You can't fuck it. It ain't for the light of heart, man. Especially no financial support.
I'm sincerely looking forward to, I'm not just saying it, I really am looking forward to watching the movie because, I mean, the trailer itself had me cracking up. Like, there was one particular line, and I'm probably going to butcher it, but the guy's on the phone.
Jimmy, I didn't say we had money. I said we didn't have money.
Like, the play on words with that, and I don't even know why it tickles me, but I can tell from that moment.
TJ, he's incredible on the phone with the dealer. It says to him, where are you? Where are you right this second?
I just love the fact that you say there's no drugs in the movie, and it's like you say, because it's a chase. I'll be watching it this weekend, but it speaks to the chase, and I think that's very creative to write a movie like that with no drugs.
And it's good not to have
drug use is boring. And also, the other really good thing about the movie is it's like an hour and 15 minutes, so you don't have to, you know, you get it.
Well, and drug use is triggering too. Like I can't watch, like, I love Pineapple Express, but I can't watch it unless I have weed to smoke with them. Like, even with somebody on the TV, they light a cigarette. It's like, well, God damn it. Now I have to go outside and have a cigarette because I saw it. So it's like, it's really cool to make a movie.
A lot of cigarette smoking in our movie. TJ, those two smoke. I smoke at the end once I'm high. But
I'll have a carton ready.
Yeah, but yeah, so that was that's a good one. And then the book. The book is, I mean, I'm proudest probably of the book. You know, it took me, writing a novel was a challenge. It's very much like a screenplay, the book I wrote. It's called Straight Dope. Mm-hmm. And it's from, I think what's the name of the press? There's little Northern California press. Anyway, it's on Amazon. And it's a genre book. It's a detective book, kind of in the Raymond Chandler tradition. But that was a real interesting challenge. I used a lot of the screenwriting stuff. It's got a ton of dialogue to drive story. Screenwriting is a very good discipline. I mean, it's a good thing to learn how to do. I think, you know, a lot of novelists famously have a lot of trouble with it because you have to be so reductive and it's so dialogue based, and it's all about using few words to convey a lot, and it's all about action, and you can't do that much inner monologue, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's hard, but having the screenwriting background is a lot of fun for sort of driving novels to go forward and understanding story. Like, I don't outline and stuff. I've been doing this so long, I've written so many, I trust my instincts. Sometimes I make a lot of mistakes, but I have an interesting way I think I go about it. You know, it's very, very intuitive, and you can't sort of beat having done something for 30 years. You know, I have a lot of respect. It's an interesting thing writing commercial movies. It's puzzle. It's a mixture of sort of poetry and puzzle making, and it's a real skill. Like it's a skill that's going away because it is nothing like writing TV. Writing a movie is a bitch, man. It's a 3-act. Classically, you know, I'm not going to get into all the structure shit. I don't care about that. But it is a circular, satisfying piece of storytelling that goes down in usually less than 2 hours, or at least less than 3. It is not 5 seasons. It is not a novel. It's a short story, and there's no more movies, so it's going to go away. Like figuring out how to do it is not going to be lucrative anymore. It's not going to be needed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah, the format's
I'm lucky
totally
that I know how to do it, because kids coming up aren't going to learn. You know what I mean? So I feel a little bit like I've got like a special luckiness that I'm sort of like an old cobbler who was experienced fixing a certain kind of shoe or building a certain kind of shoe that they don't wear anymore.
Yeah.
But there's still enough people wearing them that I can make a living doing it. You know what I mean? Anyway.
So if you got a family, you're working on the new Shrek for the family people out there, or just fans of Shrek. If you're a reader, you got Straight Dope, which you can pick out on Amazon or a local bookstore. If you enjoy good films, you got A Thousand Junkies, which you could watch on Amazon Prime.
And Puss in Boots too. I think. I mean, I had something to do with it. I the guy who finished it, I think more of his actual dialogue and stuff will be on there. I'm not sure, but I did write the movie. I worked on it for 2 years. It's coming out with the classic Banderas and Selma and all those people. I think it's coming out. I think it's Christmas actually. I thought it was going to be September, so that's happening. And I'm ensconced in animation. I mean, I don't even work job to job. I literally work on a yearly. Like I'm just an employee of my friend's company, and that's what I do. And I write books on the side. I'd like to make another movie, but it takes a lot of, it's not like something you do on the side.
Is
you
doing
can actually
something
like
Shrek or Puss in Boots, like especially after doing your own film, like A Thousand Junkies, is doing something like those like creatively gratifying, or do you have to like kind of find the creative gratification within those projects for other people that you're hired to do?
With like a Shrek kind of thing?
Yeah.
Listen, Shrek, it's interesting the way solving problems is interesting. Like I've learned, like in my personal life, I can get spun out by stuff. I'm pretty cool professionally. Like I don't get, like I'm able to really invest myself and not with the results. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like you can change my shit. Like I'm not all bent out of shape, but I write it with my heart. I write it with a real, I write dark stuff. I've had a lot of dark shit in my life. I've been a heroin addict. A lot of weird shit has happened, but I have a lot of positive, like sort of open-hearted positivity that I let come out in these kids' movies, like Cool Runnings, or you know what I mean? And I let this very positive, it finds a voice in that stuff. I just wrote a kid's book about dyslexia. And I let myself be soft, not soft, but authentically open-hearted. And I think I get away with, because I've had so much dark stuff, like I can get away with shit that a lot of people can't. Like in Cool Runnings, I can have a guy go, how will I know if I'm enough? You know what I mean? And it's not corny, you know what I mean? Because I've just been through a lot of weird shit, and I'm just not a sentimentalist. So when I do it, I get away with certain, I hope so. So I enjoy it, I enjoy it. But at the same time, in that book I wrote, I say at one point when I'm talking with these guys, we start talking about this real movie we pitched. That was an interesting idea where this guy figured out, and no one bought it, but it was cool, that you could use the song, the characters from famous songs as characters for a movie, and they didn't own them. They only owned the lyrics and the music. So you could like write a movie with Johnny Be Good and a boy named Sue is his best friend, and they go meet like Puff the Magic Dragon, and and you could do it, like you could legally do it. So we have this whole scene in the book, and I go, if you had heard me, and we have this conversation about it all, naming all these characters, and I go, if you had heard me talking out of context, you would have thought I was a mental patient. But this was what I had spent my whole life doing, talking about childlike imaginary circumstances like they were absolutely real. You know what I mean? And so that's the gig, you know what I mean? Like investing like passion and care into this absurd, childish nonsense. And every once in a while you go, oh, that's right. This is nonsense. What the fuck am I doing with my life? lost my mind. And then you go, oh, thank God. Then you go, or I could be writing books and teaching. At least I have a skill they'll pay you for. You know?
Yeah, that's
That's
Tommy, thank you so much for taking the time and being so like the stories you had are just fantastic.
Amazing.
And I'd imagine that's a good preview for the Straight Dope book. If people want more of that, they can read.
Yeah.
Is there any parting words that you'd like to leave the audience with before we say goodbye?
No, I appreciate you guys. You know, it's funny for me. You know, I mean, it's just, you know, you start out as an actor, you want to do this, you know, and then you quit, or you write movies, then you get strung out, and it doesn't happen. You make a movie, some people see it. So it's always shocking to me when anyone wants to talk to me about like what I've done as if I've accomplished something. Because for me, it's always because of my psychology and just, you know, how we all are. I'm always like, I fucked it all up. You know what I mean?
But you didn't though.
No, I know, but that's the thought. So it's always good to be reminded by you guys, like, no, we're interested. You know what I mean? So it's nice for me to be able to like go, oh yeah, some shit happened. That's kind of interesting. So, you know, I don't have to just beat myself up for the rest of my life.
Yeah. Well,
Thanks,
thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure and an honor. I'll keep in touch.
Okay, great. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.